Introducing the story of Timmy and his chronic thumbitis. This story is representative of my own experiences with modern Western medicine, as well as the experiences of others. So let's get started. Once upon a time, there was a silly guy named Timmy. Timmy hit his thumb with a hammer every day. Timmy's thumb was in pain, so he went to the doctor. The doctor gave Timmy prescription pain medicine. Timmy's thumb continued to hurt, even with the prescription pain medicine. In fact, his thumb was showing signs of inflammation, so Timmy went back to the doctor. The doctor referred Timmy to a hand specialist. After running some tests, the hand specialist gave Timmy some heavy news. Timmy has chronic thumbitis. The doctor explains, chronic inflammation is when, for reasons we cannot understand, inflammation persists without resolving. The doctor then assured Timmy that with the help of medications, Timmy can still live a normal life. Because Timmy's new medication, Thumbnex, utilized advanced technology and was specifically designed for thumb inflammation, it was very expensive, up to thousands of dollars per month. Timmy had to wait a while before receiving approval from his health insurance company to cover the cost of Thumbnex. After weeks of waiting, the coverage costs for Timmy's medicine were approved. Timmy feels lucky that he has great health insurance coverage that can cover the costs for such an expensive drug like Thumbnex. After taking Thumbnex, Timmy's symptoms improve, and Timmy is more able to do his usual everyday activities. Thank goodness for modern medicine, Timmy and his family members say. However, Thumbnex can only do so much. Eventually, Timmy's thumb develops open wounds at times and gets infected. Timmy and his family members are worried now, but the doctors assure Timmy and his family that there is always surgery as an option. By surgically removing a thumb and replacing it with a simple prosthetic thumb, Timmy would be guaranteed to never have that terrible thumb pain and inflammation again. Though Timmy would not have to take medications like Thumbnex anymore with a prosthetic thumb, Timmy does not like the idea of having his thumb surgically removed. A prosthetic thumb does not have the sense of touch, and it would not be able to function as well as a real thumb. As Timmy continues to live with his chronic thumbitis, the doctors assure Timmy that medical researchers are working on a cure. They just have not found it yet. In the medical community, there is hope that a wonder drug will cure chronic thumbitis. Fundraising events pop up all over the country, raising money for a cure. It may be a while before they find a cure, so Timmy explores other options. He starts seeing some natural health doctors. Some suggest putting ice on his thumb, others suggest an anti-inflammatory diet. These measures help, but the problem does not seem to go away. Timmy keeps thinking that there is no way his chronic thumbitis has to last forever. Meanwhile, on yet another trip to the doctor explains, "It has been 5 years, Timmy. If it could go away, then it would have by now." Still, Timmy decides to see some lifestyle medicine doctors. Timmy is surprised at all of the questions that these lifestyle medicine doctors are asking. After the line of questioning about Timmy's lifestyle and living conditions, the lifestyle medicine doctor recommends that Timmy refrain from banging his thumb with a hammer every day. I suppose what I do to my thumb every day would have an effect on my thumb, Timmy thought. So Timmy gave it a try. As the days passed, Timmy's thumb began to feel better. In his joy, Timmy relays his experience to others who have similar problems. Timmy decides to go back to the doctor, to his hand specialist, to talk to him about going off of the medications. The dialogue went something like this. Timmy says, "I tried not hitting my thumb with a hammer every day. Now that I am not hitting my thumb with a hammer every day, it feels better." To which the doctor replies, "Timmy, the reason you feel so well is that the medication is working, and I am glad that the medication is working so well. It gives us reason to prescribe Thumbnex to more patients like you. Besides, we did suggest behavioral changes to you. Have you been doing your thumb strengthening exercises? Also, there is physical therapy and giving your thumb a rest for periods of time." Timmy says, "But I could have sworn that my thumb was in bad shape until I stopped hitting it with a hammer every day." And the doctor says, I am glad that works for you, Timmy, but in our medical practice, we do evidence-based medicine, and there is just not much credible scientific evidence for a link between patient behavior and chronic thumbitis. To which Timmy says, but I swear that when I stopped hitting my thumb with a hammer every day, the thumb pain and inflammation went away. Well, Timmy, your experience is merely anecdotal evidence, and anecdotal evidence is low-quality evidence. Around here, we prefer to administer treatments that have gone through rigorous scientific testing, clinical trials, and FDA approval. Timmy is disappointed and confused that the doctor did not share in his enthusiasm. Other doctors, however, had become vaguely aware that perhaps what you do to your thumb every day has an effect on your thumb, yet they were still hesitant about talking to their patients about behavioral modifications. You know those patients, they just want to take the pills. The end. And so now I'm going to retrace back to the beginning and explain how this story is linked to my own observations of Western medicine. First, from the beginning. So Timmy hits his thumb with a hammer every day. In the real world, patients do things to their bodies every day that it doesn't like, whether it be not eating right, not exercising enough, exposing yourself to various chemicals, radiation in the environment. There are a lot of things in our environment that can hurt us. And so there are a lot of things that people do to their bodies every day that it just doesn't like. So the thing is that Western medicine tends to address symptoms, right? Not really the lifestyle and environmental causes. Now, many of the major diseases like cancer, heart disease, diabetes, obesity, and autoimmune diseases are really more caused by lifestyle and environment than they are of genes. Evidence for this, though, is outside the scope of this video, but they are primarily more caused by lifestyle and environment. Yet Western medicine has a tendency to address symptoms, like pain. And so then they might give prescription pain medicine, but then of course the condition often escalates to inflammation. And so many patients get diagnosed with inflammatory conditions, including chronic inflammatory conditions. And so you may have heard doctors explain chronic inflammation as something like this, that for reasons they cannot understand, inflammation persists without resolving. But of course they ignore these obvious causes that if you do things to your body every day that it doesn't like, well, naturally inflammation is going to be among the natural responses. But then there's all this advanced technology that goes towards treating these conditions, which perhaps could have been fixed with simple lifestyle modifications. Now, the thing with this advanced technology is people are led to believe that the most advanced technology and the most expensive treatments are somehow the highest quality treatments. But this is not true. Money-driven systems will want you to think that the most expensive treatments and the most technologically advanced treatments are the best. But often, the best treatments are going to be the ones that are very low-tech. And then, of course, there is the issue of getting health insurance to cover the cost of these expensive drugs. And imagine the stress that patients go through, hoping that their health insurance will be able to cover the costs, when maybe they could have just stopped doing the things to their body every day that it doesn't like. And of course, when health insurance does cover something, patients feel lucky, but are they really as lucky as they think they are? They may be getting expensive care and technologically advanced care, but then it may also be low quality care because it's just not addressing causes. But don't get me wrong, these drugs are not entirely useless. They can be very good for short-term symptom control. They can be very good for keeping symptoms under control, especially when symptoms become potentially dangerous. And they can help keep symptoms under control while patients try to figure out how to fix the underlying problem in the long term. Now, I've heard patients saying, thank goodness for modern medicine, for giving them all these medications that control the symptoms of their conditions, but yet they don't seem to understand how much they're being taken advantage of by the very healthcare system that they think is their friend, because it's, of course, giving them drugs and it's making money off of them, but it's not really counseling them on where the condition came from, and so they suffer needlessly because of it. Now, unfortunately, the consequences of using these symptom-based medicines in place of actually addressing lifestyle environment, the consequences can be devastating because the drugs can only do so much. And so this can allow the underlying disease to progress to something more serious. As the case with Timmy's chronic thumbitis, the thumb pain and inflammation eventually gave way to open wounds and infections. And then sometimes doctors will even resort to surgery, where they may remove body parts that otherwise would not have had to be removed if the patients were counseled on how to treat their bodies better on an everyday basis. Naturally, patients don't like having their body parts removed, but sometimes they're not even being given any other options. And then, of course, there is the ridiculous notion that somehow a drug or a medical device is going to one day be a cure, which the story of Timmy's chronic thumbitis illustrates how ridiculous this notion is. That when you have a disease caused by you doing something to your body every day that it does not like, that somehow a drug or a medical device is going to cure that. And you can see that is ridiculous, and it is a form of folly that we see in Western medicine. So naturally, patients will turn to other kinds of medicine, other kinds of resources outside of mainstream medicine, such as natural health doctors. And natural health doctors can be corrupt as well. But at least natural medicines don't cause as many dangerous side effects as drugs do. And of course, in Western medicine, there is a notion that if a condition is chronic, it must mean that it's unsolvable and it's just going to be lasting for the rest of your life. Of course, if you do things to your body it doesn't like and you keep doing them year after year, then naturally the condition could last year after year. But the good news is that if you stop doing these things to your body it doesn't like, it could go away. Now, lifestyle medicine is actually a pretty good branch of medicine because it does what doctors should be doing, which is addressing lifestyle. So it has helped a lot of people. Also, lifestyle medicine appeals to common sense because you figure what you do to your body every day has an effect on it. So naturally, Timmy feels better when he stops hitting his thumb with a hammer every day and goes back to his doctor to relay his joy. But note, the doctor attributes Timmy's improvement to the medication he's taking. And I have seen this happen, where if a patient does a behavioral modification and benefits from it, if the patient happens to be taking medication at the time, then the doctor will attribute the improvement to the medication, not the behavioral modification. Now, don't get me wrong, doctors will actually recommend lifestyle changes, like for heart disease and diabetes. But that does not mean these lifestyle changes are adequate for allowing for reversal of a disease. Sometimes they even allow for progression. Now, according to the science literature, while the moderate lifestyle changes recommended for heart disease and diabetes are not even adequate to prevent progression, let alone allow for reversal, more intensive lifestyle changes do allow for reversal of the disease. Now, there's a lot of this idolization of science, that somehow we shouldn't really believe something unless the science says so, but people end up starting to turn to science to tell them something that they should know by common sense. And so people are being told that, well, there's no evidence that what you do to your body every day has an effect on this disease. For example, people with Crohn's disease and colitis are told that diet has nothing to do with it, as if somehow the food you put through your intestines has no effect on your intestines. And so this kind of nonsense causes a lot of needless suffering. And then, of course, there's a labeling of anecdotal evidence as low-quality evidence, which, in a medical setting, could lead to gaslighting. Now, I believe that anecdotal evidence could carry weight when the individual in the anecdote can serve as its own control. In the case of Timmy and his chronic thumbitis, we know what Timmy's state was like before the intervention and after the intervention. So we can more easily attribute his improvement to the intervention. Whereas another anecdote, like let us say the anecdote that says, my grandfather smoked all his life and lived to be 90, therefore smoking is not bad for you, Grandpa in this story cannot serve as its own control because we don't know what Grandpa's health would have been like or lifespan if he had not smoked. So, of course, patients are going to get frustrated with doctors, and rightly so. Now, eventually, though, doctors do seem to become aware that there are certain lifestyle changes that do make patients get better, like the plant-based diet. And indeed, the plant-based diet has become more commonly recommended for patients. But this does not mean that there isn't healthcare industry corruption. You see, healthcare corruption will, at the very least, cause a time delay between the time that evidence is first available for the efficacy of an intervention and when it becomes common practice. Dr. Michael Greger estimates that there is up to a 17-year time delay between when evidence for the plant-based diet's efficacy in reversing chronic disease is available and the time that it becomes common practice. Now, some people may say, well, those patients, they just want to take the pills. I think that people who say this may as well be the spawn of Satan. This myth has been debunked in the science literature, where the science literature has numerous studies where patients were put on intensive lifestyle changes and they were successful. I believe that this mindset is a mindset that is characterized by a blaming of the victim. And so perhaps you can drop a comment and let me know what your experiences were with Western medicine.